Today I want to tell my story of how I found community and support in all the ways in the breast cancer experience. My breast cancer story started almost 2 years ago, and for the first 3 months after mastectomy and during all of my planning and decision making before mastectomy, I was pretty alone. I did actually have a local breast cancer support group right away after my diagnosis, and they met monthly in person at coffee shops. And I didn't make it to many of the meetings, but it was because it was in a coffee shop and because it was strangers, it was a little bit hard to get acclimated to that group and to share very personally or deeply. There was one gal in that group that I did know prior to my diagnosis, but that group only met monthly, and I didn't get to see them often enough or talk deeply enough about my struggles with them because it was a very light coffee shop kind of conversation. A lot of small talk and a lot of resource sharing, which was valuable. I found my physical therapist through that group, and my physical therapist was a real lifeline for me. So I don't want to discount that early experience of having that support group here locally. But it didn't provide some of the deeper connection needs that I had. But 3 months after, I started to find my resources. I started to find podcasts. That was the first place that I found some like-minded stories and storytelling around breast cancer that I could really relate to and got a lot out of. The two podcasts that I found first were The Burn with April Stearns. It's a audio publication of the written publication and work of Wildfire magazine. And it still is the most soothing and consoling, just connotation and memory that I can conjure up, because it gave me so much solace to listen to other women's stories, really, really personal stories around their breast cancer diagnosis and treatment and aftermath especially. And that really did a lot for me, even though I never got to talk to or write to or in any way communicate with those women that told those stories. Nowadays I do, because I know some of them just from being in the community this long. But at that point it was just listening, and listening was enough. I think some of the deeper connection came even later, about 6 months after my mastectomy, my first mastectomy, in the form of a couple of retreats. And the first retreat I went to was a general cancer retreat, and it was an excellent retreat. It was up in Washington State, and I actually learned about it from a podcast which is in syndication now. It was put together by a woman named Tammy Grable up in Seattle. It is not being recorded, or there's no new episodes coming out now, but it is still out there. You can listen to it. It's called Your Killer Life. And Tammy was a really high energy gal. I'm not sure if she's still living or if she had a recurrence or what's going on with her now, but she was a really high energy gal that liked to share resources and stories. And I think she was the one that helped me to learn about The Burn and Wildfire magazine actually too. But she talked about going to this retreat at Harmony Hill Conference Center, Retreat Center, and how life-changing that was for her. And so I found that as a resource and signed up for that just about 6 months after my mastectomy. And it was a delightful experience. It combined yoga and some contemplative kind of meditation exercises and just a regular, really healthy support group kind of model. And the two support group leaders from that retreat also led an online support group that's ongoing, and I stay in touch with them and I go to that. It's a 2.5-hour monthly support group on Zoom, and most of the gals that come, and there's one guy, are from the Washington, Seattle area, because that's where this conference center is closest to. And so I don't get to see them in person much, but I did meet a couple of them in person at my retreat, and then we're having a reunion where we'll see each other in person up in Seattle, I think this fall or this summer. So that retreat and that support group are a general cancer, not a breast cancer support group, and I do feel like it is sufficient. For me, it's more about how deep are people willing to share and not about the particularities of breast cancer always. So that meets a really big need for me in an ongoing way, and it's super reliable. It's kind of like my one constant thing since I went to that retreat. The other retreat I went to was Flat Retreat, which is no longer in practice. They're no longer holding retreats, but I did find a lot of local friends, and the flat community has a little bit different dynamic. I feel like it's a little bit more powerful in terms of creating friendships because it has to do with your body and body positivity and that self-image kind of morphing and redefining experience. When you do that in community, it really, really bonds you. And so that was another really life-changing experience. And because my first flat retreat was here in my local area, I met a whole bunch of flatties locally, and we still hang out and do things together as a group all the time and one-on-one all the time. So that's really my tightest knit community, I would say, locally. And again, it's just more about the body than it is about the cancer. We all still share, concerns about ongoing recurrence and ongoing sickness. A lot of my friends from that group have had huge repercussions from both chemo and radiation and have had ongoing health issues. So I think health issues in general are a big issue for that group and not necessarily cancer recurrence at this point anyway. So those have all been amazing opportunities to create community and support for myself around breast cancer and mastectomy. And so I just wanted to share that there's just a huge diversity of ways that each person finds support. The other way that I found was through Instagram. I did find Flat Retreat in that first retreat that I went to through Instagram. So you can also look using hashtags like flat closure or double mastectomy or mastectomy tattoo or any kind of hashtag that kind of describes what your specific interest in or your struggle is around breast cancer. And that really led me to a lot of promising resources as well, mainly Flat Retreat and Stand Tall AFC. So I feel like each one of us has the opportunity to kind of create your own menu according to your needs. Some people don't have ongoing needs for support after breast cancer, but many of us do. And I feel like the younger generations need more support. We need to talk about it more. We need to process it more. We need to not sweep it under the rug. And so I just wanted to share kind of an exhaustive list of all the ways that I've found to not be alone in this struggle, to be able to share and have people to call when I have worries or things that come up with my body, or further mastectomies and surgeries like I did in the last year. So it's been a really huge gift to find all of these resources, and that is the main reason why I've decided to start a podcast. If you haven't heard some of my announcements and seen all of my little shorts that I've been making on my channel lately, I am launching my podcast at the end of this month in June of 2024. It's called A Breast Cancer Diary, and it actually is listed just as of the last couple of days. It was listed and the trailer is up, and there's just a 3-minute trailer that you can listen to that describes what I'll be talking about in the first season. So I'm just making this video to share that there's one more resource out there that could be the thing that leads you to your people, to your tribe or your community or your resource, the thing that you need to not feel alone as you're going through breast cancer or mastectomies in this time. So I just wanted to share that with you. If you're interested, you can find it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I haven't gotten on Stitcher yet, but I think it's on Amazon and iHeartRadio, all of the podcast apps that you might find a podcast on. It will be there eventually, but right now it's definitely on Spotify and Apple. So if those are ones that you use and you like to listen to podcasts, it will be launching with, I think, 3 episodes right off the bat on June 30th. And then I'm going to try to get an episode out every Sunday. And the format will be every other week I'll have a guest and kind of a lengthier interview, maybe 20 or 30-minute interview with someone that's really changed my story or someone that's kind of representing a resource that's changed my story. And then, in different seasons we'll have different themes. Like I'm sure I'll have a season of talking to people who've written books about their breast cancer story, or a season full of talking to doctors and surgeons about the newest technologies and drugs that are out there for us, and maybe imaging. So different seasons will have different themes, but this first season will be mostly people I know well, people who have impacted my life and kind of changed it for the better around my breast cancer story. And what I would like to ask you today is to leave in the comments below what resources you're missing, what stories you'd like to hear, what topics you haven't found information out there about. Where are the gaps in your life in terms of what you're looking for, either for information or support, or just hearing stories of other women who have been through something that you've been through or that you might be going through soon. So I'd love to hear what your needs are in terms of content around these kind of storytelling opportunities that come up with podcasting, especially. And I will still be posting videos here, but they will be a little bit less regular. It'll probably be once a month rather than 2 or 3 times a month, as it has been on average up until now. So I'll still be here, but just not quite as often. So look for my podcast either now or on June 30th when the longer episodes drop.